A train cuts through the open grasslands of Kenya, crossing the entire length of the country in under 5 hours. Below it, lions roam, elephants walk. The wild savanna stretches out in every direction. But this train isn't on the ground. It's flying above all of it, gliding along a concrete track elevated high above the earth, crossing rivers, valleys, and national parks without touching a single inch of protected land. This is the standard gauge railway of Kenya, and it is one of the most jaw-dropping construction projects ever completed on the African continent. Here are the numbers that will stop you in your tracks. The railway stretches nearly 500 kilometers. It was built in less than 3 years. It costs 3.88 billion. And almost every single piece of it, from the steel rails to the concrete pillars to the locomotives themselves, was engineered and delivered by one country, China. But before you ask how, you need to understand why. Because the story behind this railway isn't just about concrete and steel. It's about a country that desperately needed change and a global superpower that saw an opportunity no one else was willing to take. Let's start from the very beginning. A country stuck in the past. Kenya sits on the eastern edge of Africa. Its capital, Nairobi, is one of the most important cities on the continent. It is a hub for business, tech, and diplomacy. And right at the edge of the country on the Indian Ocean coast sits the Port of Mombasa. This is one of the busiest ports in all of Africa. Every day massive cargo ships arrive carrying goods not just for Kenya, but for countries hundreds of kilometers inland, places like Uganda, Rwanda, and South Sudan. But here's the problem. Getting those goods from Mombasa to Nairobi, a journey of roughly 500 kilometers, used to be a nightmare. The old railway running between these two cities was built by the British over 100 years ago during colonial rule. It was never upgraded. Trains crawled along at speeds that felt more like a bicycle ride than a freight service. A trip that should take hours could drag on for more than a day, sometimes 2. Trucks were only slightly better, clogging the one main highway, breaking down in the heat, and driving up prices for everyone. The cost of moving goods from the port into the inland parts of East Africa was ranked among the highest in the entire world. Local businesses paid more to move a container from Mombasa to Nairobi than companies in Europe paid to ship goods across entire countries. Think about what that means for a country trying to grow. Every product that arrives through that port gets more expensive by the time it reaches people who need it. Farmers can't sell their produce fast enough. Factories can't get their raw materials on time. Clinics in rural areas wait longer for medical supplies. Small shop owners watch their profits disappear into transportation costs they have no control over. The whole economy slows down because the roads and railways are stuck in the past. It wasn't just inconvenient. It was holding an entire generation of Kenyan businesses back from competing with the rest of the world. And the older this colonial-era railway got, the worse things became. Tracks warped in the heat. Bridges crumbled. Whole stretches of line became unsafe and were simply abandoned. Kenya needed something bold, something completely new. And that's exactly what showed up next. China's offer and the plan that changed everything. In 2014, China made Kenya an offer that was almost impossible to say no to. China's Exim Bank, a state-owned financial institution, offered Kenya a loan of about 3.8 billion. The China Road and Bridge Corporation, one of China's most powerful construction companies, would handle the entire project from design to delivery. And China would bring something even more valuable than money: its engineers, its technology, and its workforce. This was part of something much bigger called the Belt and Road Initiative. China was investing in infrastructure across Asia, Africa, and beyond. Not purely out of generosity, but as a long-term strategy. When China builds a railway in Kenya, it exports Chinese steel. It deploys Chinese machinery. It trains local workers using Chinese methods. It collects loan repayments over decades. And it builds relationships that shape trade and politics for years to come. Some people call this smart diplomacy. Others call it economic strategy. Either way, for Kenya, the result was the same. A railway that would never have been built otherwise. Before a single bulldozer moved, Chinese engineers flew in and began surveying the entire 500 kilometers route using satellite data and aerial aircraft. They mapped every hill, every valley, every river crossing. They calculated where elevated sections would be needed, where the ground was soft, and where the terrain demanded special engineering solutions. This planning phase alone involved hundreds of specialists working across the landscape for months. And so construction began. Tens of thousands of workers arrived on site. Heavy machinery moved across the landscape like a slow-moving army of progress. Supply chains were set up to deliver steel, concrete, and equipment to dozens of active construction zones simultaneously. The goal was simple on paper, but almost unbelievable in reality. Build a 500 kilometers modern elevated railway in under 3 years. Here is where the rail story begins. Building on nothing but sand and sun. Before a single rail could be laid, engineers had to deal with one of the biggest challenges on the entire project. Kenya's landscape along the route is mostly flat savanna with stretches of loose sandy soil that shift and crumble. You can't just pour concrete on top of sand and expect a railway that weighs hundreds of tons to stay straight and level for decades. So, the first battle wasn't against distance. It was against the ground itself. Hundreds of bulldozers moved across the construction zone, flattening hills and filling in dips to create an even surface. But flattening the ground is only the beginning. Loose sand doesn't hold weight well. It's soft. It moves. If you build on it without treatment, over time, the whole structure will sink, shift, or crack. To solve this, engineers used a clever trick. They pumped water into the sandy soil through long spraying arms stretched across the site. When sand gets the right amount of moisture, its particles start binding to each other more tightly, almost like adding a small amount of water to dry flour. The surface becomes denser and more stable. Once the moisture reached the right level, the next step was pure force. Giant cranes lifted a steel weight, sometimes as heavy as a medium-sized car, and dropped it straight onto the ground. Over and over, the impacts created shock waves that traveled deep into the soil, pushing the layers together and squeezing out the air gaps that make loose ground weak. After enough drops, the ground became almost as firm as packed rock. Then came massive rolling machines that drove back and forth over the surface like giant irons pressing a shirt flat. Each pass removed more air, tightened the particles, and hardened the ground further. After the rollers finished, workers spread a thick layer of Kenya's characteristic red soil across the surface, pushed it flat, and compacted it again. Layer by layer, the ground went from something you could push your foot into with ease to something that barely gave way under the weight of a fully loaded construction crane. The entire process had to be repeated across hundreds of kilometers of route, section by section, in temperatures that regularly climbed past 30 degrees Celsius. Workers and machines operated in rotating shifts to keep progress moving without stopping. Every section was measured and tested before the next phase could begin. Because if the ground failed at any point later, fixing it would cost far more time and money than getting it right the first time. By the time this process was complete, the earth beneath the construction zone had been completely transformed. What was once soft, shifting savanna sand was now a hard, dense foundation strong enough to hold cranes, concrete mixers, and massive steel structures. From nothing, a platform for one of Africa's greatest engineering achievements was born. And that was just the ground. The real spectacle was about to rise above it. A forest of concrete giants. Now, here is the part that will genuinely make your jaw drop. The Kenya Standard Gauge Railway is not a ground-level track. Most of it is elevated. It runs on top of thousands of massive concrete pillars, each one roughly 15 m tall. That is about as tall as a five-story building. Each pillar weighs close to 90 tons. And they are lined up one after another about 35 meters apart, stretching as far as the eye can see across the open plains. From a distance it looks like a giant concrete centipede crawling across the landscape. Up close, standing at the base of one of these pillars, it feels like standing at the foot of a skyscraper. Every single one of these pillars was built on site. Workers assembled steel molds, filled them with high-strength concrete reinforced with steel bars, and let each column cure and harden before moving to the next thousands of times over across hundreds of kilometers. In the blazing Kenyan heat, each pillar had to be placed precisely because even a small error in alignment would throw off the entire bridge deck above it, forcing expensive corrections down the line. But the pillars are only the legs. Once they were standing, the next challenge was connecting them, stretching a concrete bridge deck across each gap to form the elevated platform that the trains would eventually run on. This was done using something called precast girders. Think of a girder as a giant concrete beam about 30 m long and weighing up to 100 tons. Each one was cast in a factory yard near the construction site, carefully shaped inside a steel mold and reinforced with high-strength steel cables that were stretched tight before the concrete was poured. When the concrete hardened, those cables pulled against it from inside, making the whole beam many times stronger than ordinary concrete. Once a girder was ready, a specialized machine called a launching gantry moved along the tops of the already built pillars, reaching forward to pick up each girder and set it precisely in place between two pillars. The tolerance for error was just a few millim on a beam weighing as much as 10 full-grown elephants lifted high above the ground. After each girder was placed, steel cables running through its body were tensioned further using hydraulic machines. Then protective material was pumped in to seal everything against rust. One by one, beam after beam, the bridge deck grew, 30 m at a time, day after day, kilometer after kilometer. By the time the elevated sections were complete, Kenya had a structure that stretched across national parks and wildlife corridors without a single road crossing, fence line, or disruption to the animals below. Elephants still walked freely. The Nairobi National Park, which sits right at the edge of Kenya's capital, was crossed without a single animal being displaced. The railway flew over it all. Steel that bends like spaghetti and locks like rock. Once the elevated bridge deck was complete, the next job was laying the rails themselves. And this is where the scale of industrial production involved becomes truly hard to believe. Steel rails don't come out of the ground already shaped. They start as thick steel blocks called billets, each one weighing several tons. These are loaded into massive industrial furnaces and heated to around 1,200 degrees Celsius. At that temperature, steel doesn't shatter when hit. It flows. It bends. It can be shaped. From the furnace, each glowing billet is fed through a series of rolling machines that work like a pasta press, but for metal. On the first pass, the steel is squashed slightly and stretched longer. Then again, each pass reshapes the cross-section a little more, slowly forming the exact profile of a railway rail. A wide flat base, a tall, narrow web in the middle, and a rounded head on top where train wheels will eventually roll. By the time a billet finishes this rolling process, it has stretched from a block just a few meters long into a rail stretching up to 100 m. That is the length of a football field made from a single piece of steel shaped under enormous pressure while glowing red hot. The rails are then cooled slowly and carefully to make sure they don't warp or crack. Straightened under rollers and cut to standard lengths before being shipped to the construction site. Now, here is something worth thinking about. A railway rail sitting loose on the ground would just be a metal bar. What makes it a functional part of a railway system is everything below it. The concrete sleepers. Concrete sleepers are the rectangular blocks that sit underneath the rails and hold them in place. Each one is about 2.5 m long, weighs around 250 to 300 kilograms, and is made of pre-stressed concrete, meaning steel cables are stretched tight inside before the concrete is poured, giving each sleeper extra strength to handle the constant pounding of heavy trains. Every sleeper comes fitted with metal clips, plates, and bolts. These hold the rail firmly to the sleeper so it can't shift sideways even under the enormous forces that occur when a loaded train rounds a corner or hits the brakes at full speed. Here is the detail that puts everything into perspective. Every single kilometer of this railway requires somewhere between 1,600 and 1,700 sleepers. The entire line is about 472 kilometers long. You do that math and you are looking at hundreds of thousands of individual concrete blocks. Each one manufactured, transported, and installed with precision. Rail sections were pre-assembled into modules of about 12 to 15 m, each containing around 20 to 25 sleepers before being craned into position on the bridge deck. This modular method meant crews could install large sections quickly rather than placing each component one at a time. Once down, each module was aligned to maintain the standard rail spacing of 1.435 m, a measurement so critical that even a tiny deviation would make the track unsafe for trains to use. Once the rails were laid onto the sleepers and clipped into position, crews used a process called thermite welding to join the ends of adjacent rails together. In thermite welding, a chemical reaction produces heat so intense it melts steel, fusing two rail ends into one seamless piece of metal. When done across an entire line, the result is a single continuous ribbon of steel stretching hundreds of kilometers with no joints, no bumps, no weak points. Trains can fly over it at full speed without rattling or vibration. What this railway actually changed. When the first train rolled from Mombasa to Nairobi in 2017, the journey took about 4.5 hours. The old colonial-era railway, when it even ran, could take more than 24 hours for the same trip. That is not a small improvement. That is a complete transformation. Goods that used to sit in slow-moving trucks or ancient rail cars now move quickly and efficiently from the coast into the heart of East Africa. Farmers get their produce to market faster. Businesses can plan their supply chains with confidence. Passengers travel in errand-conditioned carriages in a fraction of the old time, and the wildlife corridors beneath the elevated sections remain intact because the railway flies above them. The project employed tens of thousands of Kenyan workers during construction, many of whom gained skills in modern engineering, machinery operation, and technical maintenance they had never had access to before. Local engineers and technicians were trained to operate Chinese-built locomotives and signal systems. New stations became hubs of activity in communities that had never seen modern transportation infrastructure before. Towns along the route started seeing more economic activity as goods and people moved through them at a pace the old system could never support. For ordinary Kenyans, the difference was felt immediately. A trader in Nairobi could now order goods arriving at Mombasa port and expect them the same day. A family traveling between the two cities no longer needed to budget for an overnight journey. Students, workers, and tourists suddenly had a fast, reliable, affordable option that simply didn't exist before. Is the project perfect? No. Kenya took on significant debt to build it, and questions about long-term repayment are real and ongoing. But in terms of what was actually built, the speed at which it was done, and the scale of engineering involved, it stands as one of the most remarkable infrastructure projects in modern African history. A 100-year-old British rail line, crumbling and forgotten, replaced by a floating highway of steel and concrete that glides silently across the East African plains. That is not a small story. That is history being made in real time. Before you go, if you made it this far, you just took a journey from the sandy plains of Kenya all the way through the heart of one of the most ambitious construction projects in the world. And you did it without sitting through a single engineering lecture. That is what this channel is all about. The stories behind the biggest, boldest, and most mind-bending construction projects on the planet, explained in a way that actually makes sense. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. It genuinely helps more people find this kind of content. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. We have more jaw-dropping projects coming that you are absolutely not going to want to miss. And here is a question for the comments. If you could build one infrastructure project anywhere in the world that would change lives the way this railway did, where would you build it and what would it be?